There, that might work better. Hello and welcome to lucky number 13, season 1, episode 13 of Chris's Creative Corner. Chris's Creative Corner. Do. I'm feeling particularly punchy today, and that also means that clearly I should write my own jingle. Maybe I have a friend who could write a jingle for me. Chris's Creative Corner. He's creative. He sits in the corner, and he is Chris. I should probably keep my day job. Anyway, we're going to start with questions for Chris. Let me organize my questions first, obviously, because I didn't update them from last episode. There. Okay. Today's first question comes from a friend on Twitter who is an aspiring author. They have not published anything yet, and they are really looking forward to it. I think they want to try for the traditional route. So I'm pulling for them, hoping for all the good things for them. They ask, what are common traps for aspiring writers? My first immediate thought is the idea of language. So if you've read my books, you know that I don't overwrite, I guess is the way you could put it. I like to make my writing very accessible. I don't necessarily feel it is a must to include rich and, I don't know, luxurious and bounteous language. All of those words just seem so unnecessary to me. Maybe it's just from my journalism background, but if I have a story to tell, I want to be direct about it. But I also think that a lot of writers get so focused on other words for said or walked or stood and there's still things that all writers struggle with. I still struggle with the word just. It's a crutch word. I just wish I could just stop using the word just. It's just not needed. Anyway, you can fall into these traps of being told, you have to write this way or you have to write that way. That's how you're going to get published. I would also say, and this kind of ties into the next question, you never know everything. You don't know what you don't know. And what you do know is very little about books. Because of all the books in the world, you've only read very few. Very, very few. Even if you've read an entire library full of books, that's still very few of the many different books that are in the world. I don't know if you could possibly read every single book in the entire world that exists, especially with how many authors there are now that are creating new books every year. I just feel like that would be impossible. So being aware that you don't know and it's okay and that you're always constantly learning is, I think, the best approach to writing. If you go into writing and you're like, I've been doing this for 30 years, I'm an expert, everyone bow before me because I know everything. Bitch, sit down. Instead of lording over us with I know everything, why don't you tell us what works for you? Because that has obviously been helpful for you. I don't think Stephen King would sit there and say something like, I'm an expert writer and you all need to bow before me and learn exactly how I write. I feel like he recognizes there are different writing styles, and what's worked for him has been his writing style. That's just fair to say. The other thing is that there's a formula to creating stories and what sells. And I kind of got into this last episode, the idea of what sells. Stories that are formulated according to industry standards sell. Stories, whether they're good or not, that are not formatted for commercial success like that, I guess, do not sell. at least through traditional means. There are plenty of indie writers who have amazing, beautiful stories that don't follow the prescribed notion of, this is your story needs to be 10% this, 5% this, 20% here, 30% here, blah, 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 blah. There are stories that don't follow that formula and they work. When you're first starting out and you're aspiring to be a writer, you need to learn what the rules are so you can break them. And that is all I will say about that. Next question. Does a big ego help or hurt writers? And I think that a big ego hurts writers. You can go ahead and be the most successful writer. And if you have a giant ego about it, you probably don't have many friends. You may have people who fawn over you, people who appreciate your work and think you're a genius and that kind of thing, but they don't know the real you, I would say. Like, anybody who has a giant ego about things that they know really well, I feel hasn't taken the opportunity to learn what they don't know. There's always something new. There's always something interesting and something that's never been done before and something fresh that you can look at and gain inspiration from. And I think ignoring those things and thinking that, oh, well, I'm an expert and therefore I have nothing left to learn is really naive. You can know very, very much about a tiny subject. Like, if I go to school to get my doctorate, I can know an awful lot about teaching counseling. Does that mean that I know everything there is to know about counseling? No. Will I ever? No. Is that okay? Yes. That's just how it is. Being aware of where you can grow and being humble is so important. There's so many people in this world who are like, I have the right answers. I'm correct. I know everything there is to know about this. Bitch, do you? Because I don't think you do. At the same time, there are things like, let's say someone like starts questioning, like if I ever get big enough, I post something about the book Porch Light that I'm reading, and I'm like, oh, I think this character is this. And they disagree with, like, did you even read the book? Like, blah, 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 blah. I can come back and be like, bitch, I literally wrote the book. And that doesn't mean that I'm right. It means that I have more knowledge. I have more expertise. I am more likely to be aware of what my characters think and feel. Their perspective would be really interesting and important to listen to. More often than not, when it comes to science, though, like, don't question, like, the scientists. Like, they do their research. Like, writing is a creative thing. Writing is a fluid, ever-changing, vastly growing, altering thing. Science is the same way, but it's all based on evidence of true, false, that kind of thing. I'm not going to get into, like, my beliefs on science. I just believe in science. I believe that it's a legit thing. So, anyway, that is all for questions for Chris for this episode. Thank you. If you have questions, submit them. I will get to them. I will, I promise. If they are repeat questions, I will not get to them because I don't like to repeat myself. You can always go back and listen to the episode in which they appear. I always appreciate that. Now that we are done with questions for Chris, we can move on to chapter 13 of my book, Porch Light. We're on chapter 13 of my romance. Does everybody remember what happened last episode? Yeah, I'm still fuming about it. Reading it is quite interesting as well. So what happened last episode and last chapter, chapter 12, Nick spent his time in Nashville sleeping with a highly attractive editor of the Out Gazette, and did an interview as Pillow Talk and was very open and honest with this guy, Tony. He made it back to to King, and Casey greeted him with a big kiss. And Casey wasn't drunk, and it was just a kiss. And Nick is kind of curious about it. And then Casey says that he hooked up with some girl named Tatiana, who Nick obviously dislikes right away. Knows nothing about her, but, he's jealous. And then Nick goes to work, and he gets to work Saturday, Sunday, and come Monday, he gets written up and told that the front desk manager job he wanted was offered to someone else at the pay rate that he requested. So he's pissed, and he yells, and he got fired. Yeah, I'm pissed for him. And I wrote this scene. So now we're moving on to the next chapter, and we'll see what happens. Chapter 13. One door opens. I'm going to leave a shitty review on their hotel website. You have to have been a guest to get offered to review. Then I'll get a room, and it'll be such a shitty experience they'll have to give me my room for free, and I'll still leave a shitty review. I sighed, taking a sip from my drink. It's a nice offer, Casey, but it's just a waste of time. What a fucking bitch. You negotiated the higher pay for the front desk manager, and then she gives the job to someone else? How long has Heather been there? 7 months. I was the one who trained her. He gestured wildly. See? That's bullshit. You should call corporate and demand to speak to human resources. It's a locally owned hotel. Corporate is probably Diego's dad or something. I have no options. Besides, I wouldn't want to go back to work there. I can't believe I yelled in her office. Casey sat down beside me and grabbed my shoulders firmly. You had every right to yell, to demand justice. You were totally and completely wronged here, Nick. This is not okay. I sighed, nodding and taking another long drink and spilling some down my front. We were sitting on the couch in the apartment. I had my phone pulled up on jobs and had already applied to 5 other hotels since that was what I had the most experience in. Casey also convinced me to apply at his coffee shop, and since he was a manager, it was likely I could get on there. But I didn't want to be a barista or a server at his restaurant. We went and got an application as soon as he picked me up from work. It actually took a bit of convincing to make him leave the hotel parking lot. In the end, he rolled down his window and flipped Sandy off as he drove off. What a punitive bitch. A fucking piece of work. What a giant asshole. Casey went to the fridge and got us both another drink. I was already feeling pretty good, but it's not like I had to be at work the next morning. I don't want to talk about her anymore. I hate her. And I hate Heather. No, I don't. It's not her fault. Unless it is. Unless she convinced Sandy to hire her instead because, ooh, look at me, showing up and covering people's shifts like Nick did last year when 3 people quit. But don't you remember that? Just remember me here right now, and don't you just have the fucking nicest shoes? Heather. What a manipulative bitch. Unless she's not. Sandy could have made her front desk manager just to spite me. Maybe she's not to blame at all. Casey opened a new bottle for me and handed it to me. I chugged the rest of my drink and took a swig off the new one. I felt like Casey, letting loose. I was feeling really wild. Reckless. How many had I had now? 5? 6? Well, I also had those shots. I was really lightheaded. And yet, Casey had still managed to drink more than me. I'm done applying for jobs now. I want to do something fun. We could go out. My stomach turned over as my brain worked quickly. No, I want to stay in. You're not the only one who gets horny when they've been drinking. Casey laughed as I sidled up to him. What were you thinking, Nikki? I kissed him quickly on the lips, and his entire demeanor changed. He looked at me seriously as I smiled at him. I like blowjobs, Casey. He raised his eyebrows, looking amused. Whoa. I'm not gonna suck your dick, Nikki. I think you've had too much to drink. I kissed him again on the corner of his mouth, and then on his neck. Not for me. For you. I reached for his belt buckle and began to undo it, but he gently pushed my hands away. I don't think so, Nick. Come on, sit back and watch some TV or something. I don't wanna. Just let me have a taste. I got further this time, undoing his belt and the button on his pants before he stopped me. Seriously, Nikki, I think you just need to... I need your dick in my mouth, Casey. I want it. I want it real bad. Come on. I might not even remember in the morning. Pretend I'm Patricia or Isabella or whatever. I got his pants all the way undone and pulled it out of his underwear. I almost had him in my mouth before he stood up. Let's get you to bed, Nikki. Good idea. He walked me over to the bed, his pants still undone. I pulled him down with me as soon as we got close enough and kissed him passionately. He protested for a moment, then we pulled apart after several minutes. Come on, Nikki. You know I can't. But you like kissing me, and I like kissing you. He looked into my eyes, his thumb lightly stroking my cheek. I do like kissing you. It doesn't have to mean anything. I just want to make you feel good. I could see it in his eyes. Anguish. Then something clicked for him and it went away. He leaned in and kissed me, softly at first, then more urgently. Okay. It was all he said, but it was enough. Soon my head was between his legs and he was moaning with pleasure. It was like a dream come true. I was happy, and I was making him feel good. Afterward, I don't know how much later, I was woken up by the feeling of being slightly jostled. Earthquake? No. I listened and I heard the source. Casey. He was lying next to me, curled into a ball, sobbing. Oh my God. What had I done? I had caused this. I couldn't comfort him. My eyes immediately filled with tears. I just laid there listening to him cry until he got up for work. I pretended to be asleep so he wouldn't know. I spent the day filling out more applications until Casey got home from work. He walked in and set his bag down, looking quickly at me and away as he walked into the kitchen area. Hey. Hey, Case. Silence. I didn't want to say anything, but I was also used to him not really shying away from hard conversations. I decided to wait and see what would happen. How goes the job search? It goes. I already had a hotel across the street from my old one call and want to do an interview. Oh, and we both got something in the mail from Ackerman Records. He finished making his sandwich and came to sit down on the opposite side of the couch. What is it? I waited to open it. I was too nervous. Well, let's answer the question. We both tore into the envelopes and stared for a moment. Royalties check. It had a statement of how much our video had made us online, and with our single playing all over the radio. $29,000? Casey stood up, his sandwich falling off his lap and on the floor. Holy shit! I stared in disbelief at the check. I had the same amount. I was holding a valid check for $29,000. Was this real? Nick! Casey looked at me, his arms wide, and I stood up. He pulled me into a hard hug. It's really happening. Holy shit! He let me go. We've got to call Kennedy and Levi and tell them to check their mail. He got on his phone, and I stood there, still staring at the check. It was like winning the lottery. No, better. I'd earned this money. We worked hard, and it was paying off. We'd been given a chance, and it was really happening. I know. Let's all go cash them together before our show tonight. Casey was talking excitedly to Levi. Yeah, we can meet here and then go. Okay, see you soon. Bye. I looked up and Casey looked at me, still excited. Then he seemed to remember something, possibly last night, and looked away, down at his sandwich on the floor. Meh, I could just brush it off. Casey, are you kidding? Let's go cash this check and go out to eat. You don't need to eat a floor sandwich. He grinned at me, then picked up the sandwich. He went into the kitchen and remade a piece of bread, then threw the other piece away. I shook my head as he turned back to me and took a bite. I'm not going to be one of those wasteful rich people, although now I have money to buy my own pot instead of using friends. I grinned at him. I can't believe this. I can't believe it. I should call Omar and thank him. Let's all do it together when the others get here. Soon, Kennedy and Levi arrived. Kennedy and I jumped into each other's arms and continued jumping while we hugged, screaming our heads off. Levi gave Casey a solid bro hug, clapping him twice on the back. Let's go cash them already. I can't wait to show Linda at my credit union. We drove around town, going to everyone's bank and credit union. I didn't know the people at my credit union very well, but they still congratulated me. I decided to put the bulk of it in savings, keeping $1,000 in my checking and pulling out $500 in cash. I held the 5 $100 bills in front of my face as Kennedy took a picture to post online. We want to say something about being excited to see our first major payday for being a band. Casey was looking over her shoulder as she typed. And say we're excited to see what happens next once our album comes out. And say we couldn't have done it without everyone's love and support. I folded the bills and put them carefully in my pocket. Thank the label, Levi said quietly. We all nodded in agreement. There. Kennedy clicked the post button. Now, one more stop before we have our show tonight. My mood deflated slightly as I realized the stop was going to be to her dealer's house. She bought us all several joints and a large bag of weed for herself. I kept looking around, nervous police officers were going to swoop in and arrest us. I'd never bought drugs. I'd smoked with my friends occasionally after a show, but never seriously. Then we all drove back to Casey's apartment and lit up. I only smoked a little, as I really wanted my head clear to perform, but it was just enough that it took the edge off, so I wasn't nervous when I got on stage later that night. We performed for half an hour, then Casey got on the microphone and thanked everyone for coming. And to thank you properly, a round of drinks on us! The bar cheered, and the poor servers glared at us. Casey ended up shelling out $700 on alcohol that night. I did my best to help him up the stairs to his apartment and got him into bed, taking off his shoes and socks. He was passed out before I even started getting his shoelaces undone. My phone dinged with a text message. I picked it up and saw it was from Omar. Can I call you? Sure. The phone rang a moment later, and I eagerly picked up. The man of the hour. Omar, we're so excited about the checks we got today. That's good, that's good. Listen, I have some news for you. My heart sank. This had all been too good. I should have known something was going to go wrong. What's up? Are you sitting down? And you might want to grab a paper and pen. I hopped over to the coffee table and collapsed on the sofa, grabbing my notebook and pen out of my bag. Okay, I'm ready. We finished your album tonight. Oh my God! Omar gave me a second to chill out before continuing. That's not all. We have the date set for next month, and I lined up some gigs for you. You'll be opening for Pentatonics in New York 2 weeks after your release date. Then, I got you to open for Neon Trees, just like you wanted. Omar, I swear you're an angel. Are you serious? I know it's late and everything, but I just wanted to call and let you know. We'll send out a press release and get you some more interviews and morning show appearances booked. You might even want to do some appearances locally. I bet your newspaper and local stations would think that's a big deal. I took a deep breath. This is all just so much. Thank you, Omar. Whatever we can do or whatever we need to do, you just tell us and we'll do it. Make sure you have some songs that aren't on the album. You'll want to debut 1 or 2 numbers when you're on tour. Other than that, I'll be in touch. Thanks again for all your hard work last week. Thank you, Omar. Talk to you soon. Bye. I hopped back over to the bed and laid down hard. Casey snorted awake and looked at me, rolling onto his side. What was that smile for? I just got a call from Omar. We got even bigger news. His face lit up as I told him the good news. He leaned over and gave me a hug, his breath heavy in my ear. I knew we could do it, Nikki. I knew we could do it. I'm just so grateful, Casey. We all worked really hard to make this happen. He pulled back and gave me a soft kiss on the lips, his hands holding my face. I love you, Nikki. I love you too. He pulled away and rolled onto his back, eyes closed. Everything's gonna change now, isn't it? Yeah, but I think it's all going to be good change. And that is the end of chapter 13. Like I said, it was lucky. That's all for this episode of Chris's Creative Corner. Make sure to tune in next week for chapter 14, and we'll have a couple more questions as well. I also have a quick announcement that I have officially booked 2 people to talk to me about Porch Light. So I'm going to record that, and we'll see how it goes. I'm very excited about that. That will probably be a longer episode to discuss the book, which I'm just so excited about. And I have no idea how it's going to go. Maybe they're going to tear me apart, but it's going to be like the best tearing apart ever. I'm so excited for it. Anyway, that's all for this episode of Chris's Creative Corner. This was episode 13, lucky number 13. I know people say it's unlucky. I find it lucky, and Nick and Casey and the band found it lucky this time. Maybe that will change in chapter 14. We'll find out next time. Okay, that's all I have. I'm going to let you go now. Okay, bye!